So let's get started. We have quite a few participants here. Good morning, everyone. If you're dialing from US, good afternoon for those who are dialing from Europe or other parts of the world. Um, Welcome to the first episode of DigiChem Dialogue series. Chemical industry has been on digitalization path for the past few years, especially post-pandemic. The pace of digitalization has accelerated, and we are being requested by a lot of our customers and potential customers and industry players about sharing some of the best practices that we are seeing in digitalization. As the companies and the industry leaders are embarking on this journey, they are facing a lot of challenges, and they're also finding some innovative ways of solving these challenges. So our goal through this webinar series is to bring the people who are actually engaged in digitalization, the practitioners in the industry leaders, the subject matter experts, and the folks who are thickly involved in digitalization. So hopefully with the aim of sharing the best practices so that those who are working on it, thinking about starting their digitalization journey for their organizations, they can get some help on this. These are not a promotional webinars. You will not hear Agilis pitch or any of our product or platforms. Of course, we are going to bring folks whom we know from our network. So some of those would be our customers. So to that extent, that is the only part that I would say it could be, you may see a little bit of bias from that point of view, but we are welcoming anyone who is interested in joining as a panelist for this series of events. And with that, I'm very excited to welcome the first guest at the DigiChem Dialogue series, Mr. Colie Whitaker. Colie, those who are in chemical distribution space, Colie doesn't need any introduction. He is very well known throughout the chemical distribution space in North America. He has a very interesting journey. He is a veteran, United States Air Force for several years, and then he joined family business, taking the Whitaker company has a very rich, checkered 95 years history, and Colie has a unique background and perspective of turning this business around and from being a US Air Force veteran to running a chemical manufacturing and distribution business. So he will definitely will bring a very interesting perspective. So Colie, welcome to the show, and we really appreciate your time, and first of all, thank you for the services.
Well, thank you very much, Jay. Thank you for the warm introduction. Honored to be the inaugural guest here on your show. So yes, Jay mentioned the Whitaker Company, fourth generation family-owned business based here in Atlanta. Also have a branch in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and another one in Orlando, Florida. Chemical distribution has been our niche for most of all of our lives, and then here recently transitioning into the manufacturing world as well. So as Jay mentioned, was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Air Force. In fact, it was the day after I graduated college when I walked up on the stage and got the diploma. I walked up on the very same stage the next day and was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Air Force. And in fact, my grandfather rather, who is a lieutenant in the Army Air Corps, actually read me the oath of office, which was pretty cool. So, yeah, and then from there, I won't get too deep into my career, but it was a 12-year career, 9 deployments overall, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, and other lesser-known kind of classified type ops. And then finished my career as the director of operations in the 99th Reconnaissance Squadron, which was flying the U-2. For those of you that don't know, and some of you may not, U-2 is a high altitude reconnaissance plane or spy aircraft. It's single pilot, so you're up there alone for 10 to 12 hours, sometimes longer at a time. Because of the high altitude, you have to wear a high pressure or a pressure suit, which essentially looks like a space suit. So in a cramped cockpit that isn't about the size of a phone book or a phone booth, rather, about how much time you have or space to move around. So rather uncomfortable for the 10 to 12-hour missions. But as Jay was kind of pointing out, that transition from the military to civilian life, there's quite a few of transferable skills. Leadership management certainly is one of them. The military spends a great deal of time grooming its leaders. And against the persona, what a lot of people think it's General Patton screaming on a desk, yelling at their people. Well, yes, there is a time, mainly in combat, where there's a need for a direct approach. But more often than not, it's the indirect approach that works better. And this is what we're taught as leaders in the military. So certainly leadership management is one of the best, most transferable skills. But believe it or not, I actually learned quite a bit about innovation. And those in the audience would think, well, the U-2 is a Cold War relic, first flown in the 1950s. What in the heck what did you learn about innovation in flying the U-2? Well, because it was first flown in the 1950s, and it's still flying today. In fact, Jay, I bet there's a U-2 airborne right now. But it had to innovate. Otherwise, it would have been retired 30 years ago. So the original U-2, it just took pictures, and it used what's called an optical bar camera, which is similar to what most of the audience used to use. Well, the older audience, before the digital age, the wet film. Those old school cameras that you had to get developed. That was all it did. So it was basically a one-trick pony. Today's U-2, however, is a multi-intelligence platform. So it still does the imagery intelligence, which is taking pictures, but these are now digital cameras with spectral bands and wide radar arrays. So, it's a digital camera on steroids in essence. And then it also does communications intelligence, electronic intelligence. It does all of this with the ability to process and disseminate all of the information in near real time to Air Force, not only Air Force, but Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and then the 3-4 letter intelligence agencies. So how do you take a 70-year-old design and transform it into the modern age? Well, it's taking that, using state-of-the-art equipment and always adapting and innovating. And if those before me didn't innovate, and then my class didn't innovate, then the U-2 would have been retired 30 years ago.
Fascinating. Colie, whenever I meet Colie at the NACD events, I try to sit on the same table as Colie is, because he has so many fascinating stories about his time at USAF. And in fact, I'm learning a few new things. Like, I didn't know that U-2 pilot has a cabin of a phone booth size and it's a single pilot plane. So that's quite remarkable, because it requires a lot of mental toughness to fly those high altitude for 12, 13 hours.
Yeah, there's a lot of screening and testing that goes in prior to your first flight. And part of it actually is a claustrophobia test, because you would have guys, the suit is claustrophobic enough when you put the helmet on and the Baylor bar down. And then when you close the canopy, it's like, wow, you're cramped and tight, and that's going to be your home for the next 10, 12 hours. So, yeah, wow. Anyway. Yeah, so me sharing stories is not the gist of your podcast or the gist of your presentation today. So I'll let you continue, Jay.
Sure. No, thanks, Colie. So what I was going to say, that after doing this such a tough job, I think running a chemical distribution business should be a piece of cake, right?
Well, one would think, but I also, those who know me well, I'm sure they've heard me say that the transition from flying combat missions to running a family business, the combat missions were easy compared to running a family business.
Right, because there's no script.
Yeah, exactly. There's no rules of engagement.
Right. So my question, the next question is around the chemical distribution business. You took reins of this business, family business, how many years back, and how do you see the chemical distribution space has evolved in the past few years, especially in terms of customer preferences?
So I retired from the military. It was actually an early retirement type deal that they did for my class. That was 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, I came back into the business and then took over as president at the most difficult and challenging time in our history, right in the middle of COVID. It was April of 2020 is when I took over as president. But that actually was a blessing. The industry has changed quite a bit just in the last 10 years. The amount of information that's available on the digital side is maybe, in my mind, perhaps one of the most significant. This is a game changer for lead generation because it opens up the realm of data scraping, data mining, and that can be further accelerated with the use of AI technologies. The older generations before, in terms of lead generation, it was, you're looking up a phone book, you're using the word of mouth, or you're driving by looking for people with storage tanks. It's a much more rapid way to gather warm leads now. So we're trying to take advantage of that. Remote work also has probably been something that's significantly changed. And I just mentioned COVID. That COVID probably smashed down the accelerator on the remote work transition, because that was likely underway. Now we're seeing it a bunch more. And then the virtual work has then paved the way for virtual assistants as well to do different tasks within a company. And then remote meetings, settings like we have right now. Now they're not as effective as in-person meetings, but it's still more effective than a phone call, I'd say. And then you've got more use of customer portals. Comes with this both good and bad, with us having to enter data into the customer portal. Is essence us doing their work for them. However, on the flip side, it does, when you can get all of the system to match, it eliminates some of the human error that goes in. Customers can now grab SDSs, tech data sheets, instead of requesting them via email. And then e-commerce is starting to kind of make a trend into that area as well. Now, it's certainly been profound in our personal lives, the e-commerce, and again, that's something that's just gone full throttle in the last 5 years. I never imagined all the things that I'd be buying online now. When you were first the prospect of initially buying shoes online, well, I want to try them on first. Well, now I can buy 2 or 3, try on a couple, and send the other ones back without penalty. And then at the speed at which it arrives, and then the pricing, you've got automatic pricing and other prices that you can compare. So it's a game changer for commerce overall. But the chemical distribution manufacturing business has been a bit slow to adopt, but for some good reasons. There's some barriers to entry here. For example, I can't sell a drum of heptane, a product that's more flammable, way more flammable than gasoline. I can't just sell that to some rando who's buying it on my website. There's got to be a responsible distribution aspect in play. Customer needs to be verified. And then second, the industry itself is sometimes tend to slow and adapt to new technologies, and I have my own theories for that, and we could save that for another show. But I think those are the significant ways in which the industry has adapted or has changed in the last 5 to 10 years.
Right. Thanks, Colie. I think you touch upon very important and pertinent points, and it's quite refreshing from a leader in the chemical distribution. I think one of the things that you mentioned early on, that gone are the days when you can chase the trucks or pass by the chimney stack or smokestacks and then try to figure out who the customer could be. There are better tools available, and I think this is like a lot of especially folks who are early in the journey, we spend a lot of effort in explaining that you are sitting on a gold mine of data. Your product data could be leveraged to bring in new customers or enrich the experience of the current customers. So tell us about your own journey. Like, how did you come to recognize the fact that you can use the information you already have in your possession about your products, starting with your products and the services, and turn that into a lead gen portal for your business? So can you?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, the availability of information that's out there. Not only can we disseminate information about us in a rapid manner, but then we can gather information about customers. So I'll go with that, the latter one first. From the data scraping, data mining, we're using some of those tools right now. Industry Select, Zoom Info. I mentioned virtual assistants. We're working with virtual assistants to do some of the data mining, and then also on the sales support staff. So for example, we've got All the sales CRM notes come in, meetings with the sales reps have with different customers. We got a remote assistant who will organize all of those, categorize them, collect sales data on that, and she does all of that while we're sleeping. And then we wake up the next morning and it's all there. And then, we've also we've adapted that, or we've recognized, there's definitely ways where we can get our product out there to the market, and it isn't just the standard making phone calls. Now, granted, these things are really important, and some of that aspect will go away, but yeah, broadcasting who we are out there to more networks, all the different tools that you have. There's multiple email blasts that can be sent out. Those can easily be deleted. However, there's constant touch points you can have with customers, potential customers utilizing LinkedIn, along with telephone calls and in-person calls. So just seeing, and that's something that I've tried to do, with utilizing some social media tools. The more a customer sees a company out there and a company doing things, that's sometimes it's just it's promoting their employees, or sometimes it's doing something within the community. We try and advertise that as much as possible. It's not just trying to advertise our products, we're advertising us as a company. So current customers, future customers can see that and say, okay, I see this Whitaker everywhere. I get a few emails from them inquiring about selling product. Why don't I respond to one of them?
Yeah, I think that's very important. I mean, in today's world, you could be the industry leader, but you just cannot assume that my customers are going to find me or everyone knows me, so I don't need to do anything, because you need to be where your customers are, and your customers are on a lot of digital platforms already, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Instagram, or your product portals, marketplaces, your own customer portals. So you need to be found on the public domain. When I say public domain, it means Google. And then the journey of getting found by your customer starts with your product data and product information. Because someone who doesn't know you, they are not going to type your name or your product name. They're going to search with a generic problem statement. So on that, we just a lot of the folks might have seen that Whitaker company has recently launched a customer portal, and because we were involved with the this project, we know that your team has hacked it out like in less than 3 months. So tell us how they approach this project and manage resources and were able to do this in a record time.
Well, it was 3 months from the time we hit execute and went with it. However, the process leading up to that was quite lengthy. Jay, I'm sure you remember the time in San Antonio when you first met and you pitched Agilis to me. That was years ago. And there was a long analysis, evaluation process of some of the different platforms, measuring the value add to our customers and ultimately the return on investment for the company. So there was a lot. It took a lot of time, and as I mentioned, the e-commerce side of the business, it's difficult because of the obstacles and the barriers that are there. But bottom line for us, the timing was just right for some of the initiatives that we have on store for 2024 within our 2024 business plan. And then you briefly asked about the managing the resources and getting it going into that short amount of time, the 3 months. Well, that was basic process or project management, just finding someone within the company who will be positively impacted by the implementation of using this tool, like Agilis, and thus you can more easily get their buy-in. And then once you got their buy-in, they would then report to someone on the leadership team, and they're that person who is the sole responsible person to help get that implemented, overseen by those within the leadership team. So that was kind of that was the approach that we took to get it. It was really just finding out that return on investment for us as a company, and then how can it add value to the company, or to our customers rather. And there was a nice pivot that Agilis did where solving a problem we have with SDSs and tech data sheets, and as I briefly touched on that and how that can now be grabbed through a portal. Well, that was a problem that we had encountered. It wasn't until I was on the SDS request email where I saw how many were going through on a day-to-day basis. And the poor individual who was in charge of doing that on a day-to-day basis, oh, by the way, that was a secondary or tertiary job responsibility she had, but it was taking up vast amount of her time. Yeah, so you guys did a really good job of pivoting and say, okay, the industry isn't quite ready yet for e-commerce, but here's this other complementary service that we can add on. We can help devise a platform for customers to go in and grab tech data sheets and SDSs. And I think that was a really smart move from you guys. And ultimately, that was one of the first things that, all right, this can solve a problem for us immediately. Maybe the e-commerce thing isn't there now, but it allowed us, it really is what facilitated further conversation.
Right. Colie, we often hear that, the sales team often sees this as either a competing tool, or they just, I think sales and customer service are one of the more difficult functions to get a buy-in. What was your internal process? And I know that at least for the Whitaker company, the whole project was in fact led by the sales team leader.
Yeah,
So what
it was led by our VP of sales, because I knew Jay. I knew I had to get his buy-in first, right?
Right.
And yeah, sure enough, yeah, once it was actually at one of the CDN meetings where you or maybe Dylan spoke, and it was like, okay, the light bulb's coming on. It's like, especially with, like I said, what we were trying to do moving into 2024. And that was, and I'll answer your question, I think, kind of in a roundabout way, but so where our business plan was going was we were going to try and sell some of our direct products that we had that we manufacture directly to the consumers out there. We figure the market space is large enough. We're not going to be competing with some of our current customers. We want to try and sell these products directly to the consumer market that's out there. These are products that it's decoupage. They go into automotive industry, paint and coatings, just to name a few. So Agilis has that platform, the e-commerce platform, to be able to do that. And as you mentioned about how to steer customers onto the Whitaker page, well, that's search engine optimization, which is Agilis is going to be assisting us with as well, along with web analytics, website performance. This helps us identify trends, patterns, areas of improvement, how we can all steer more eyes into the website, and therefore get them on to looking at our product and potentially setting them up as a potential customer. That goes into the big picture of what we're trying to do in 2024, which is, the 3 large goals, all with 3 to 7 different strategies underneath them, and Agilis fit into that. And then you mentioned the competing with sales reps. Our sales reps don't look at it that way at all. It's right. It's going to be generating warm leads that are going to then land on the desk of the business generation specialists, and then from there they're going to turn it from a warm lead to a buying lead. It's our sales process moving into 2024 is you picture a big funnel. We're expanding the aperture of the funnel through more advanced lead generation, which is one part of what Agilis is doing. And then moving those customers quickly through the funnel. But you have to find those customers first. So it's going to be generating more customers, potential customers for our sales team. And then for customer service, no one, if you ask any of our customer support team, it's not like they particularly enjoy entering orders in. If there can be a way that for a customer, for an order to come in that's already got all the information there, then it allows them to do other parts of their job, which in essence is the emergency management of when orders go wrong and trying to fix when a carrier didn't show up or whatever the other situation will be. So it'll free up their time to do that. So those within the company welcome it, at least so far. I'm sure there'll be some roadblocks along the way. And I know that the eventual path to get customers inputting their orders through a customer portal, that's going to be it'll be a bit of a hurdle, or not a hurdle, it'll be a process. Not all the customers are going to want to do that. They're going to want the old school way. And then you got some barriers with that on keeping pricing up to date. That's going to be a challenge that we're going to have to overcome. We're hoping that there's some automation that we can trigger in that will help facilitate the ease of that pricing being more constant. It should eliminate a lot of what we encounter with order entry type error, whether it be customer communicating incorrectly to us or the sales rep communicating incorrectly with the customer, whatever those may be, eliminating those human points of failure.
Right.
So yeah, that was a long-winded version of probably the answer you were looking for, but they're really, we're not seeing Agilis as a threat. Our teams are not. They're welcoming it.
Right. No, in fact, that's exactly what we tell our prospects, that, I mean, gone are the days when sales sees digital channel as the competing. In fact, it is a help, because you're not going to spend time chasing customers on the road. You in today's age and time, you need to create tools for customers to find your potential customers. So it is, in fact, helps the sales, and also it makes life easy for customer service. Because as you pretty well elaborated, that it reduces the errors and it makes their life easy. Now you already answered some of it, like what do you expect to get out of this new tool? But what are your thoughts on how do you define success? Because, okay, you did the ROI before deciding to invest in this project. Now, how are you going to track? What are some of the KPIs that you plan to track to measure the success of this portal?
There's an overall large revenue and gross profit KPI. I won't go into the specifics of that. There's a lead generation and numbers and targets we have with that. So it all fits into, as I stated at the beginning, where the three goals that we have with the 3 to 7 strategies, and there's tactics that go under. And each one of those strategies has a metric, has some way to define that it will be successful, and without just putting out our business plan showing this is exactly how it's going to work. Agilis plays into like 4 or 5 of those different, 3 or 4 of those different strategies. So it will be they're different types of metrics, and some of them will be the number of lead generation. A lot of them are gross profit revenue type driven. New customers per month, another metric that I stole from Jason Jacobus, a good buddy of mine at First Hyperion, is net new customer. So that's in order. So you're tracking the customers that come in. Everyone's really good about that, but you're losing sight of the ones that go out the back door. We're using Power BI in conjunction with our CRM tool to DataCore to be able to track those that go out, and we generate per month a net new customer. So, having our target is 5 net new customer of 5. So we got 5 new customers coming in, and that may be a plus 15 minus 10, but that's the overall goal. So there's lots of metrics. It was it's just each one of those strategies has its own metric, and Agilis plays into several different portions of them.
All right, good. So last year we did couple of roundtable on digitalization with some of the industry leaders, and some of the common themes and something that you already highlighted. I think you have the right approach to what to expect from a digital tool, because like you mentioned, some customers are going to love it, some are going to hate it. It's just like we all are human beings. You will find that in internal users as well. Within the company, there are some who are always excited about the new technology tools, and some are, hey, don't bother me with that. So what are your plans to drive more customer adoption on the new tools, or get customers to know that this tool exists and they can take advantage of it?
So it really depends on the product, Jay. So I mentioned decoupage as one of the products we're going to go directly to the customer with. It's a 2-part epoxy, used in tabletop coating or other decorative type applications. That's a product that we could put on our website and sell it directly off of our website. Customer wants to buy a case. There's no real, it's an agreement. You have something that I want. I'm willing to give you money for that something. And then there's a transaction that takes place and the product is shipped out. Now, if we're talking about on the distribution, that's direct to customer. On the distribution side, it's going to be, it's likely going to be a bit different. It's unlikely, it's more likely on small volume, but highly unlikely on large volume, say, a couple tank trucks a month on a certain product at a ratable business, or at a ratable month by month type of reorder. It's unlikely a customer is going to go into a portal and say, this is what I want, two tank trucks of acetone per month, without ever meeting anybody. Reputation looks good, the website's sharp. Sales guy looks like he knows what he's doing on the web page, so I'm going to go ahead and order through that guy. Unlikely we're going to get to that. There's still going to be the need for, if Jay, you're a target customer of mine, you want to buy the aforementioned a couple tank trucks of acetone per month, you're likely going to want to meet me. And you're going to want to learn a little bit about who I am, the challenges we face, what separates me from my competitors. And you're going to want to hear it from me or from a member of our sales team and not just see it on our website. So there's something about the face-to-face building rapport, building trust that I don't think is going to go away when you're talking about large volume, ratable type of orders. However, once that decision is made that we like the Whitaker company, we're going to buy from you guys, then you could see down the road, if you've got these orders that are coming in, and all right, well, I'm going to go on the portal now, and I'm going to just reorder on the portal that they've created, rather than calling up a sales rep, rather than emailing it in. I've got the portal and it's right there. Or you start with those couple tank trucks of acetone. Here's all these other products that you buy that you could also buy from us, or other potential products as well. And then it's right there on the portal. You go and you click on it, you order, and then it ships out. So less work, and it's more comfortable as the buyers transition. The younger generation of buyers come in, it's going to seem more comfortable and more standardized for them because they're used to buying things online. So I'm not, the industry, the chemical distribution manufacturing industry isn't going to go there in a couple of weeks, but it is moving in that direction. And the Whitaker company is going to be well positioned when that change happens because of the investments we've made now for the future.
Right. Thanks, Colie. Sorry, I'm not giving you a breathing time.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
Last couple of questions. So now shifting the focus from the Whitaker company to chemical distribution space in general. So what do you envision the digital transformation will look like for the chemical distribution space in the next 5 years? Because I fully recognize and appreciate the thought process and what you see. We are seeing the same way because we have now implemented digital channels for global producers, regional distributors, and customers of all size and shapes and geographic spread. And we see the same thing, that it's not going to be a click to order anytime soon. It is more about digitalization in the chemical industry, is more about digitizing every step of the customer journey, where the order placement comes the last step. And so within that rim, from discovery to the engagement and transaction, where do you see there'll be a more adoption in the next 5 years, especially in the chemical distribution space?
We discussed about lead generation, customer finding themselves towards you. If you can eliminate so the steps in between, from finding the customer then to ended up buying product. If you can eliminate some of the potential points of error, the single points of failure that may exist, or the human error that could potentially exist. And using that with any type of digitalization that's out there, you're going to facilitate the transaction, make it easier for the customer to then buy product from you, and you're going to further create that quality metric that's necessary, or enhance the quality metric that's necessary, so orders aren't they aren't missing, and products in propyl acetate and in propyl alcohol aren't confused because a sales rep wrote it down incorrectly. Or a customer may have misspoke. So, using that type of automation, I think is going to continue to drive the business, drive the industry, and you see more of our companies as well, companies like us in the industry using much more involved in using CRM platforms and digging deeper into CRM platforms. And then it isn't just about collecting a note that comes in, but if you can collaborate all of that information together, and then you can use cool tools like AI, and you can start to gather get a feel for the market intelligence that's out there. So yeah, I think that's the industry is going to continue to change. I was listening to a podcast this morning and talking about McDonald's. It's built in the first founded in the 1950s. The hamburger and French fries is not a new concept, but they've offered complementary products. They've offered ways where customers can buy product easier, like the drive-through. So all these McDonald's has innovated to stay an extremely relevant company today, just as our industry and our company needs to innovate as well.
Right. Thanks, Colie. My last question, and we want to leave some time for Q&A. So my last question is on what is your advice to fellow distributors on how they can stay ahead of the curve and maintain a competitive edge in an increasingly digitized world? But please cover more than digitalization, innovation in general, because look, I have worked in a chemical distribution space and also manufacturing. So your world is always largely driven by a lot of the day-to-day issues and supply chain and product availability and all those issues. And it sometimes it gets very challenging to stay ahead and adopt new technology or new, not just digitalization, sustainability and plastic circularity and a lot of other things that you should be. Those are they fall in the second quadrant of time management. Those are not urgent, but they are important. If you don't invest time now, it will become urgent and important, and you may end up paying more price. Right.
Yeah, so, you're exactly right, but it can also be a bit overwhelming at times. And I think I get an email from a trucking logistics company about every day offering some new software where they can save us a bunch of money. So I would encourage, my advice would be to keep an open mind and to look at some of the platforms that are out there, but don't start with the ones that the first shiny object. First start with, what are the needs that I need to meet for my customer and for us as a company? Where are areas that we can do better? And then from there, start to look for tools that can improve that process. Otherwise, you will get overwhelmed by all the different platforms that are offered. There's a saying that I'll tell to my leadership team and the rest of, and there's a 4-letter vulgarity that's used, so I'm going to exclude that. But basically, it's when talking about technology, it's just mess around and find out. Just download something or have a 30-minute webinar if you think, if it meets the criteria as I was mentioning, where it's going to be beneficial for you, return on investment for you, for your customers, and it's something that's out there and it looks like it's going to be promising. Go ahead and take a look at it and keep an open mind on how it might work. I remember when I first downloaded ChatGPT, I was like, this looks cool. Everyone says that it's an awesome tool to work with, and I was initially just using it to look up cedar plank salmon recipes, and then now just fast forward a couple of weeks after that, and we're I can give a really good template for a job description. Or I wouldn't tell my wife, maybe I did wrote a birthday card that used ChatGPT as to give me some assistance. So there's many different platforms that are out there. You just got to figure out what's going to work for you, and have a willingness to try. Once you've identified, here are a couple things I want to try. All right, based off of our priorities in our business, and our business plan, this is the one that's we think is going to help elevate us and get to that level. We'll try it, execute it. Have the humility, however, to where if it doesn't work, you say, all right, guys, that didn't work. Let's try something else. But there's a really good saying from a quote rather from Elon Musk that I really like. It's, if you're not rolling back 10% of what you implement every year, then you're not being innovative enough. And I tell that to my team so that when we roll back something, that situation does happen, we throw that away. Yeah, that didn't work. Well, that's not a failure. We just figured out that didn't work. So now we can figure out, now we're closer to figuring out what will actually work for us. And we're smarter having gone through that process because now we know it doesn't work.
Right. Pretty good advice, Colie. I think, yeah, if you haven't tried, you haven't learned. So the success is not just measured in terms of dollar and the thing, it's also learning itself has a great value. So thank you very much. And so now with that, we are opening up for questions. So if you have any questions, please put it on the chat line. And Derek, my colleague, he's compiling all the questions and will be presenting to us, to Colie mainly.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a couple coming in already. So we'll start with the first one. How do you plan on keeping the personal touch while leveraging technologies like your digital portal?
Yeah, that's a good question, Derek, whoever submitted that. So as I stated when Jay and I were talking on a different question, I believe, that personal touch isn't going to go away. And I think it's going to become necessary. And in fact, if you've got one of those customers where you've got a portal set up and everything's on autopilot and out of sight, out of mind, you're not spending time on that customer, well, you're going to end up losing that customer over time because you are going to lose that personal touch. You're going to lose that rapport because there's going to be another competitor that comes in that takes them out to lunch, that shares pictures with their families. That you're going to lose that. So that, if you've got customers that are buying on a rateable basis using a portal or an online type platform, you're still going to need to go out and see that customer. You're still going to need that face-to-face time. And it's got to be more than just a Zoom meeting as well, because I've seen it firsthand where those off chance conversations, when you're having lunch with somebody, there's time where you're not talking about business. There's that dead time. And often during that dead time, if you're a good listener, you'll pick up some really key points of, I didn't know they did this. Or, hey, his wife does this. My wife is in the same, they have the same interests, so I can help build rapport there. They can maybe help each other out in whatever they're trying to do. So yeah, Derek, that personal touch is really important, and it should not be lost as we move into the digital age.
In fact, you would say, one can say that it makes it even more important because you are passing on the routine mundane tasks to the computers and the technology so that you can focus more on what matters the most.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Jay. And yeah, if you just leave it to the computers and the technology to do all the order entry, to communicate with a customer, well, the computer is not going to communicate with the customer, not nearly as well as that human touch. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Any other
and
question,
this,
Derek? Yep.
Yeah, there's one that follows up essentially on that last response and some of the other areas that you've touched on throughout the webinar. But apart from digital transformation, what other factors would you consider crucial for success of a chemical company in today's market?
The biggest thing, and and it doesn't really matter what market you're talking about, chemical distribution, manufacturing, or or SaaS, there's got to be a willingness to pivot and to adapt. So who knows what the next phase may be, the next new technology. There's a lot of hype with AI and what it can bring, and then that's going to create some areas for improvement. I don't look at AI as a big scary thing. I look at it as something that can help facilitate growth. And not something that's removing people's jobs, but making them 3 to 4 times to 10 times more efficient at their job. So the biggest thing for any business leader, executive, is just you've got to try and recognize the new technologies that are in the market, the new trends, and be able to pivot and pivot in a direction that makes sense. And yeah, but as I stated before on a different topic, when that pivot isn't in the right direction, recognize it, have the humility, hit the brakes. All right, we made an error. Let's pivot back in the other direction. But then to be able to determine what those market trends and new technologies are, that's about professional development. You've got to associate with some business networks that are out there. ACD is a great one. Also, there's just other broad business networks in general that you can associate yourself with and get out there and meet the customers. Spend as much time as you can with the customers, because a lot of times they'll report on some of the new trends and difficulties that they're facing. Customers having difficulties could be, it's an opportunity for you then to solve that difficulty, make their lives easier, and add value to them. So yeah, that's Derek, I don't know if the writer was looking for something exactly like what the next one will be. Tough to judge. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but there's just needs to be a willingness to see it as soon as you can, and then when you can, adjust and pivot.
Right. Great. I think I see one question coming through the channel. Derek, you want to read out, or I can take care?
Sure. So you mentioned a virtual assistance program, and is this technology a part of the Agilis platform? And can you briefly describe some of those examples or how you benefit?
Okay. No, a virtual assistant it's not through Agilis, at least they don't have that service as that I'm aware of. And the name can be a bit confusing. A virtual assistant is an actual person. The one that does our sales stuff, who I mentioned earlier, her name is Nicole. She lives in the Philippines, and she works for a company called Outsource Access, run by a good friend of mine named Brad Stevens. So we worked with Outsource Access to say, hey, these are some of the things that we need because this is overwhelming my sales management team. Is there someone within your organization who can assist that? And he assigned us this as an individual, and she's been working with us for 6 years. I'm sorry, 6 months rather. So no, it's Jay. I don't know if that's something that you've got on the pipeline.
No,
Probably doesn't fit into your
our
business model right now. But yeah, so that's kind of a misnomer, because a virtual assistant actually is a real person. They just work virtually. Yeah.
Right. Yep. In fact, at every ACD meeting, we see 1 or 2 new vendors offering services. They're pretty cool stuff out there. We've seen some, like you mentioned, Colie, about this Lead Jenny, and we saw some credit rating agency that incorporates new customer credit approval on the digital platform. So they're pretty cool tools available. And like Colie said, that, always try it out. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at least if you haven't tried, you haven't learned anything. So that's a great advice.
Yeah, we're doing, and just real briefly here, maybe this will add some value to anyone who's listening or watching. Yeah, we're just recently signed up with a company who's going to assist us with lead generation. So we're going to be outsourcing some of our lead generation. We're going to be still keeping it in-house, but then there's other organizations that are out there. So Jay, I think you mentioned one of them that that's all they do. They specialize in it. So they train their people to do nothing but the lead generation, all the cold calling, the data scraping. They do all of that, and they're, from what I understand, we haven't signed anything yet, and we've looked like that we've actually narrowed it down to the firm that we're going to start working with. And I'm really excited to see the results, because everything that I've heard is these guys can do really well. But they'll still be competing with our guys in terms of who can generate the most. So hopefully that'll be some healthy competition we generate there.
All right. Great.
Yep. We just got one more through that says, how have you managed communicating with your suppliers that their portfolio will be involved in throughout this digitalization endeavor?
Yeah, the suppliers, most of the ones that we've talked to, this it's a trend that they know is likely, it is emerging, and seeing it on other platforms as well. there's or from other customers. It's downstream customers generally. So the trend is coming, and there's an acceptance for that. Now, I think I know where the writer is getting at with that question. There are certain suppliers that are out there, and they have certain products that aren't going to want to be sold in that type of manner. They're not going to want to market it that type of manner because there's distribution arrangements that they have. You know, a supplier may have an area in the Southeast, which, you know, this is who my distributor is for the area in the Southeast. So, yeah, so there's distribution arrangements where someone else is trying to sell product into that region. You end up having the molecules compete against each other, and the customers, the suppliers aren't going to want that. So how we're addressing that is we're picking certain products that we are going to be selling online. So not all of our products will be on full access to on the portal. We've identified which ones we know will be sensitive, and we're not going to cross that bridge yet. Our suppliers in our industry are extremely critical, so I don't want to do anything that'll burn that bridge. So it has to do with product selection, and being very mindful that we're not that we don't put ourselves in a position where we're selling a supplier's product, which is then having that product compete with another one of their distributors in a certain region. But that, I guess that's also a service at Agilis. You could, if we just wanted to keep our product sold in the Southeast, that's something that you guys can do. So that's another way to overcome that. As it stands right now, we're just going to be a bit careful. We're going to tread lightly on certain products that we know are going to be sensitive.
Right. Yep.
That's a really good
Geofencing is
question.
part of, right. No, great question. In fact, in our experience, most suppliers are happy to see their distributors launching digital tools to engage customers, because most of the manufacturer producers' goal is to get more and more digital, access to their portfolio through distributors and to the direct customers as well. So they see it as a positive. And like Colie said, that you always have to, digital does not mean that you destabilize the ground rules that you have set up or your supplier has set up. So that is where the proof of the pudding lies in setting up your digital channel in a way that it does not conflict with any of your or your suppliers' existing rules of engagement or relationships. So
yeah, exactly.
Right. With that, we are about time. Thank you very much for all the participants, and Colie, thanks a lot. This was a very insightful session. I'm sure all the listeners and participants got a good value out of it. Thank you very much for your time. And once again, thank you for your services.
Well, thank you, Jay. I appreciate it. Thank you for wanting me to speak. Hopefully I added value to at least one person who was on the other end listening. But it was fun. I had a great time. Look forward to seeing you again in person.
Thank you. Thanks, Colie. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Take care.
Yep.